Right now, you're sitting there, probably pretty comfortable. And if I asked you, are you in pain? You'd say no. But here's what I want you to think about. At this exact moment, your body is sending thousands of signals to your brain. Pressure from the chair, temperature of the air, the weight of your own clothes against your skin. Your brain is quietly deciding which ones matter. And pain? Pain isn't something that happens to you. It's something your brain builds. That should bother you a little, because think about what that means. If pain is constructed, if it's assembled, edited, sometimes invented entirely, then what exactly are you feeling when something hurts? Is it real? Is it accurate? And here's the one that really gets me. Where is it? Your finger doesn't feel pain. Your knee doesn't feel pain. Nothing in your body below your neck actually experiences anything at all. There's only one place in the entire universe where your pain exists, and it's not where you think it is. Let's start with something everybody assumes and nobody examines. When you touch a hot stove, you'd say the pain is in your hand. That's where it burns. That's where it hurts. The hand is the problem. But your hand has no ability to feel pain. None. It has sensors, remarkable little sensors, but they don't feel anything. They just fire. These sensors are called nociceptors, and the name already misleads people, so let me be careful here. Noci comes from the Latin word for harm. So nociceptors are technically harm detectors, not pain detectors. The distinction matters enormously. A nociceptor detects that tissue is being damaged and are threatened with damage. It picks up on pressure beyond a certain threshold, heat beyond a certain temperature, chemicals released when cells break down. It's like a smoke alarm. The alarm doesn't experience the fire. It just goes off. When your nociceptors activate, they send an electrical signal, an action potential. It travels up nerve fibers, some fast, some slow, through your spinal cord, up into your brain. The signal itself is just electricity. It carries information. It doesn't carry suffering. Here's the analogy I keep coming back to. It's like a telegram. The wire carrying the telegram doesn't feel the message. It just conducts it. The telegram arrives and says, damage detected. Location, left hand. Severity, moderate. Recommend immediate attention. What happens after the telegram arrives, that's where everything gets strange. The signal hits a little structure deep in the brain called the thalamus. Think of it as the brain's post office. It receives incoming signals and routes them to the right departments. From there, the signal doesn't go to one place. It fans out simultaneously to several different regions. And this is where I need you to slow down with me, because this next part changes how you think about pain completely. One part of the signal goes to the somatosensory cortex. This region asks, where's the problem? How intense is it? Is it sharp or dull? Hot or cold? This is the part that localizes the pain, that gives it a location, a quality, a character. But another part of the signal, simultaneously, goes somewhere else entirely, the anterior cingulate cortex. And this region asks a completely different question. Not where does it hurt, but how much do you care? This is the suffering part, the distress, the please make it stop. These are two physically separate processes happening in two physically separate brain regions. The sensation and the suffering are not the same thing. And we know this, not just from brain scans, but from patients. There are documented clinical cases of people who received morphine for pain and said something that sounds almost impossible. They said, the pain is still there. I can still feel it, but it doesn't bother me. Read that again. The sensation remained. The location signal was still coming through, but the suffering, the caring about the pain, was chemically turned down. Which one is the real pain? The sensation that continues but doesn't bother them, or the suffering that disappeared? I genuinely don't know how to answer that. And I think that uncertainty is the beginning of understanding something real. Try something right now. Press your thumbnail firmly into the pad of your opposite finger. Notice what happens in sequence. First, there's pressure, just pressure. Then, after a moment, something else arrives, a building unpleasantness, a quality that says this is not okay. And then, almost immediately, an urge. Stop doing this. Those are three separate things. And your brain assembled all of them from one simple mechanical signal. The pressure was the nociceptor firing. The unpleasantness was the anterior cingulate cortex deciding this matters. The urge was your prefrontal cortex running through options and producing a decision. Your finger didn't do any of that. Your finger just got pressed. Everything you actually experienced, your brain made that. Now here's where it gets even stranger, because the brain isn't just a passive receiver of pain signals. It's an active editor, in real time, constantly. Your brain has an entire system. It's called the descending pain modulation system, which is a very dry name for something deeply remarkable. The brain doesn't just receive signals from the body. It sends signals back down to the spinal cord, which can turn the volume on incoming pain signals up or down before they even fully arrive. Think about what that means. Before the pain signal even completes its journey, the brain is already deciding how much of it to let through. This is why a soldier can be shot in combat and not notice until hours later. The brain in a high-stakes survival situation turns the volume down hard. Endorphins flood the system, your brain's own version of morphine, and the pain gets filtered, not blocked, filtered. Athletes know this too. You've heard stories of someone finishing a race on a broken leg. That's not toughness in the way people romanticize it. That's brain chemistry. That's the descending modulation system doing its job, keeping a person functional in a moment where stopping would be worse than continuing. But here's the thing that really stops me cold. This system works the other way too. Fear turns the volume up. Anxiety turns the volume up. Anticipating pain, just expecting it, activates brain regions that intensify the signal before it even arrives. If you believe something is going to hurt badly, it will hurt more. Not because you're weak, because your brain is running a predictive model and the model is shaping the experience. The placebo effect is the most beautiful proof of this. A sugar pill that a person believes is a painkiller genuinely, measurably reduces pain. And it's not a trick. It's not just psychological in the dismissive sense people mean when they say that. Researchers have measured the actual endorphin release in the brain after a placebo. The chemistry changed. The belief created the chemistry. Your expectation rewired your neurobiology. Now flip that, the nocebo effect. You tell someone a harmless substance will cause pain. They experience pain. Real, measurable, neurologically verifiable pain from nothing. The brain didn't receive a signal and report it faithfully. The brain had a belief, and it manufactured an experience to match. And then there's chronic pain. And this one is important to get right because people suffer enormously from it and are often treated like they're exaggerating or imagining it. They're not. In chronic pain, conditions like fibromyalgia or persistent back pain that continues long after an injury has healed, what's happened is genuinely bizarre. The original damage is gone. The tissue healed, but the pain persists, sometimes for years, sometimes forever. The signal system got stuck. The neurons that were repeatedly firing during the injury became, essentially, oversensitized. The threshold dropped. What used to require actual damage to trigger a signal now triggers from almost nothing. The pain is real. The suffering is real. The chemistry is real. The damage isn't there. So when someone with chronic pain tells you they're hurting, they are. Their brain is generating a genuine pain experience. It's just that the brain is wrong about the source. It's like a smoke alarm that went off during a real fire, and now, months after the fire, it still goes off every morning because the calibration is stuck. The alarm is real. The fire is out. Okay, so now we know the full mechanical story. Nociceptors detect tissue threat. Electrical signals travel up the spinal cord. The thalamus routes them. The somatosensory cortex locates and characterizes the pain. The anterior cingulate cortex generates suffering. The descending modulation system edits everything in real time based on context, expectation, memory, emotion. We have the whole map. Here's the part nobody can explain. None of that, not one single piece of that mechanism, explains why it feels like something. I can tell you exactly which neurons fire. I can tell you exactly which chemicals are involved. I can predict with reasonable accuracy which regions of your brain will light up on an fMRI when you stub your toe. I can trace the entire electrical pathway from the nociceptor in your foot to the cortex in your skull. And I cannot tell you why there is an experience. Why does it hurt? Not, what is the mechanism that produces pain behavior? I can answer that. But why, at the end of all this electrochemical machinery, is there something it is like to be in pain? Why isn't it all just processing, just signal, just information moving through a biological system with no one home? This is what the philosopher David Chalmers called the hard problem of consciousness. And it's hard not because we haven't studied it enough. It's hard because it seems like a different kind of question than the ones science is normally good at answering. Science is extraordinarily good at answering how questions. How does the signal travel? How does the brain modulate it? How does the placebo effect work chemically? We've made enormous progress on all of those. But why is there experience at all? That's not a how question. And nobody, not neuroscientists, not philosophers, not physicists, has a satisfying answer. And I want to be honest with you here, the way I always want to be honest about the edges of what we know. When someone gives a thing a name, it can feel like they've explained it. We name the receptors nociceptors. We name the pathway the pain matrix. We name the experience qualia. We name the problem the hard problem. None of those names are explanations. They're just places we've drawn a circle around our ignorance and said, here, this is the thing we don't understand. I think that honesty is important, not as defeat, but as orientation. It tells you where the real questions live. So let's pull all the way back. Your body sends a report. The report says something threatening is happening here. The brain receives it, checks it against memory, weighs it against context, decides how urgent it is, runs it through chemistry, and after all of that, constructs an experience. The pain you feel is not a direct readout of damage. It's your brain's best interpretation of a threat signal, filtered through everything you've ever experienced, everything you currently believe, everything you expect to happen next. Two people with identical injuries can be in completely different amounts of pain, not because one is stronger, because their brains are running different models with different inputs. That's not weakness. That's not exaggeration. That's how the system works. And pain is not a flaw in the design. This whole complicated, editorializing, sometimes miscalibrated system, it exists because it kept your ancestors alive. Pain is the brain's most urgent message. Pay attention here. Something matters here. Act. Without it, you wouldn't know your hand was on the stove. You'd never feel a stress fracture deepening in your shin. There are people born with congenital insensitivity to pain, no functional nociceptors, and their lives are genuinely dangerous. They break bones without knowing. They damage joints without feeling the warning. Pain, for all its unpleasantness, is the system working. Sometimes it works too well. Sometimes it works when it shouldn't. Sometimes it gets stuck at maximum volume with no off switch. But the architecture makes sense. The design was not a mistake. Here's what stays with me, though. In the middle of all this machinery, the nociceptors and action potentials and thalamic routing and cortical processing and descending modulation and endorphins and beliefs and predictions, in the middle of all of that, there's you, experiencing something, not processing it, not just responding to it, actually genuinely, unmistakably experiencing it. And we don't know how, we don't know why. We've named everything in the chain. We've mapped every station. We've run every chemical analysis. And the fact of experience, the simple fact that it feels like something to be you, that remains as mysterious as anything in the universe. Maybe more mysterious. Because at least with distant stars and quantum fields, we can say, well, the experience of those things is happening somewhere else. It's separate from us. We're observing it from a distance. But the mystery of consciousness is not out there. It's right here. It's the thing doing the observing. It's not a phenomenon happening somewhere in space. It's the only phenomenon we know from the inside. Every time you feel pain, even something small, a paper cut, a stubbed toe, a headache arriving in the afternoon, that's not just biology. That's one of the deepest unsolved questions in the history of science, making itself impossible to ignore. The whole machinery fires. Every stage we've talked about, the detector, the signal, the routing, the suffering, the modulation, the construction, all of it runs perfectly. And at the end of it, something happens that we still can't account for. You feel it. And the more carefully you look at something as ordinary as pain, the stranger the universe gets. I find that beautiful. I genuinely do. Not comforting. I want to be clear, it's not comforting. The mystery doesn't resolve into something peaceful. It opens. It gets bigger the longer you look at it. But that's where the real questions are. Not in the things we've already explained, in the things we've explained perfectly and still don't understand. That's where I'd want to spend my time. The first principle is that you must not fool yourself, and you are the easiest person to fool. The pain you feel is real. The place it lives is not where you thought. The reason it exists is something no one has yet explained. And you've been carrying that mystery around with you your entire life, every scrape, every injury, every ache, and just calling it pain. Now you know what you don't know. That's the beginning of something.